Hi, Angel. I see that you're outside.
Hi.
All right. How do I? Oh my goodness, I have too many tabs open. Okay. I officially called order week 7 Senate at 7:01 p.m. We can start with the roll call. Ariel, do your thing.
Perfect. If everyone wants to message in the chat how they've been feeling this week or something that they've been doing to cope with all the stress that's been going on.
Yeah, I honestly would not be surprised if we found out like what or if we had like official confirmation of who won by the end of Senate. Which I don't know. If anyone does happen to find out during Senate, please let us know. Or actually don't do that, but maybe in the Zoom chat or something. I don't know. Um, but yeah, okay. We can move on to the next thing, which is the invocation. If I could have someone read out the invocation, please. Sorry, let me share my screen again. This time I'm thinking maybe one of the sophomores, any of the sophomores.
Yeah, I've got it. May we, the Student Senate, have the wisdom, patience, and guidance to be responsible representatives. May we be fair in judgments, enlightened in our discussions, and ethical in our actions. Can I get a go at Broncos?
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Go Broncos.
Let's move on to the land acknowledgement statement. If I could have someone read this too.
I can go ahead and read it.
Yeah, thanks, Emma.
Okay, so we pause to acknowledge that Santa Clara University sits on the land of the Ohlone and Muwekma Ohlone people, who trace their ancestry through the Mission Dolores, Santa Clara, and San Jose. We remember their connection to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. Let us take a moment of silence to pay respect to their elders and all Ohlone people of the past and present.
Thank you, Emma. We can now move on to the approval of previous minutes. I think I switched up the order. I'm doing the approval of previous minutes before the agenda, just because we do that every single meeting. But let me share the. Oh, I hope Will is here.
Oh yes, I found it. Thank you.
Amazing. And it should be this one. Oh no, it's not this one. Here we go. I'm sorry. Willa's last name is not spelled right, but I think Ariel can get that changed.
Yeah, I'll change that. I didn't notice that. Thank you.
Yeah, if this looks good, I would entertain a motion to approve previous minutes.
Motion to approve previous minutes.
Motion from Emma. Wait, that was not Emma. That was Cassidy.
Cassidy.
Second.
Second from Melanie, I think. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Perfect. Let's move on to the approval of the agenda. The agenda this week is quite simple. We have three things. We have first year senator confirmations. We have 3 of them, and 1 senior senator confirmation. And then we're going to look at the no confidence resolution that the Santa Clara University Racial Justice Coalition sent us. And at the very end at 7:30, Professor David W. Ball from the law school will be joining us. And here's a copy of the actual agenda. those should be swapped, but yeah, if everything looks good, could I please get, or I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Motion from Annika, second from Cassidy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Perfect. Let's move on. Let's go first to the first year senators. So we have three first year senators with us today. We have Izzy Clark, Rosie Huang, and Rachel. I want to say Statian, but I don't know. Rachel, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Staten, like the island.
Staten. Okay, got it. Yeah. So if you guys could just introduce yourselves, talk about why you wanted to join ASG, and maybe like some projects you're looking forward to doing as a first year senator.
I can go. I'm Izzy Clark. I'm a first year senator, and I wanted to join first year senate. So I almost said the wrong club because I'm a member of squad and women's cross country and track, and we've been talking a lot about like issues with diversity within athletics, and I wanted to bring that more to admin's attention and have a place to talk about that. Also, a project I want to work on is just having more first year like virtual events, which can be just like Among Us and Jackbox games or like study sessions. And yeah.
Thanks, Izzy.
And now they're tied.
I can go next. Hi, y'all. My name is Rachel Staten. I'm a first-year poli-sci major. The things that I'm interested in are ensuring everyone has access to the resources they need, mostly through more open communication with the school in a way that's not so overwhelming, just to make sure that everyone has clear communication on what is available to them and what are options for them, especially in the more lower income and underserved populations on campus. And yeah, I look forward to meeting y'all and getting to know y'all more and learning from y'all. So thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Rosie. I'm a first year marketing major. Yeah, so I think the reason why I want to be in ASG is that in like just like my 7 weeks of being here, I feel like I've seen a couple of like problematic patterns. Like they just like keep on happening, which I feel like is something that we should address just like as a community. But since I haven't been on campus, I don't think I know like I like fully understand the extent to a lot of things, and also like the resources that you guys have available. So I'm really looking forward to like learning more. I feel like I have a lot of learning to do in this community, so I'm really looking forward to like supporting some of other people's projects, just to like some that are already established. So yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. I'm gonna, and we can move on to, or not, oh wait, did I only do first year senator? Interesting. We also have a senior senator to be confirmed. Grace, could you do the same thing? Introduce yourself, why you want to be a part of ASG, and what you look forward to doing as a senior senator.
Yeah. Hi guys, I'm Grace Gilmore. I'm a senior and I'm a history major. I decided to join the Senate in my last year here because I've just become increasingly infuriated with the actions and inaction of our university. And I really wanted to find a way to get involved, and I figured this would be the best option to actually make tangible impact. I would really like to see in my next 2 quarters here the implementation of an advocate position within our staff to serve as a sort of go-between for students and faculty and the administration during times of investigations into racially charged incidents.
Thanks, Chris. Now I'm going to open the floor. Does anyone have any questions for any of the appointees? In the meantime, Cole, can you prepare the waiting room for them? It doesn't look like there are any questions. If that's the case, Cole, you can send it to the waiting room whenever you're ready. All right, we're good. They're all in the waiting room. Amazing. Thanks, Cole. So does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? Pause recording. Thank you, Melanie. Senators had a question for you. Our Senator at Large for Health and Wellness, Emma Fontana.
Yeah.
Emma, could you repeat your question?
All right, hi. So my question was, so as a senior, you've been a part of the Santa Clara community for 3+ years around. So I'm just wondering what it is that you yourself have been involved in on campus, or, you know, things that you've been passionate about on our university in your time at Santa Clara that we as fellow senators or, you know, people within the community might be able to, you know, bounce ideas off of you about, or, you know, gain insight, you know, just so that we know that we can go to you for help on different things. So I'm just wondering what your involvement has been on campus.
Yeah, I would say specifically the most valuable one might be my involvement with the History Honor Society. It's Phi Alpha Theta. I served on the exec board starting in March of last year, so not really like, we didn't have many opportunities to do much. Under Michael Broman is the professor who's advising that right now. Oh, it's all changing. So that would be my main involvement. I've also been a part of like various clubs, Green Club, Forge Garden Club, Mindfulness Club, and things like that.
Awesome, thank you.
While she's here, does anyone have any additional questions for Grace? If not, Cole can move her back to the waiting room. Perfect. Thanks, Grace. Cole, if you can move her back into the waiting room. Okay. Senior Senator Robbie, if you could come and swear them in for me.
Yeah, I got it. Can you guys hear me?
Or Cassidy.
Can you hear me? Yes, it's Robbie on Cassidy's phone. Sorry, it's a crazy night. All right. If I can get everyone who's recently been appointed to turn on their cameras if you want, and repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I, Rachel Staton,
I, Grace Gilmore,
Clark.
Do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution and bylaws
do solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution, bylaws
of the Associated Student Government of Santa Clara University.
of the Associate Student Government of Santa Clara University.
Congratulations, guys. Welcome to ASG.
Congratulations.
Yes, I did dress up, Emma.
Also, I just wanted to say, Robbie, you're looking snazzy today. Oh my goodness.
I agree. Thanks. Currently in a trial, so I'll be right back.
All right. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the campus safety no confidence resolution. This was sent to us by the Santa Clara University Racial Justice Coalition. Let me just pull it up on my email real quick. So I trust that you've all been able to look it over in your free time before Senate. But Ciara, could you provide a little bit of context on who sent this to us and kind of the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, hi all. So following the incident, staff there's this coalition on campus called the Racial Justice Coalition. It seems to only have like 4 members, but they're, I believe, all professors. The main person who sent this out to us was Sarah Brockmeyer, who I believe is a professor. And so she basically, like, this was forwarded to ISAC. So all of the ISAC ASG members also saw this and commented on things. But faculty senate, staff senate, and ASG senate are all going to be voting on this in their respective senates and then passing this along to respective admin. Typically, resolutions, like, students will do their own, and we never really have this coalition. So this is kind of exciting to have all three aspects of shared governance coming together for the same reason regarding campus safety. Oh, thanks, Ted. I didn't know that. There's only like 4 in their charge. It had like three names, so maybe those are like the co-chairs of the coalition.
Interesting. Yeah, so I welcome any questions, comments, or concerns. I know that for most of this year, we've kind of been voting on most things the same week that they've been proposed, but I do think that this is a very important resolution, so we probably shouldn't do that. But at the end of the day, it is up to Senate and what you guys want. But it seems like Afani has his hand raised.
Yeah, I got this, and I was like kind of confused who the Racial Justice Coalition is. So if anyone knows what they do or who's like involved in it, would like to talk about it, I like love to hear more about them.
Justin, isn't there charge on the same email that she forwarded?
So yes.
That might
So
be
I
helpful.
think so. The task force, the members are interesting. Are these 3 professors? But I'm actually, Ted, could you jump, do you know anything about, could you give us a little bit more clarification? Because so Sarah's the
Sure.
spokesperson,
Yeah.
but she's not on the task force.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't pay attention to that first line. The coalition is pretty large. I'm actually a part of the coalition too, just as a member on the email list to stay informed and contribute. But it is comprised of faculty, administrators, and staff, basically any Santa Clara employee. It's not a formal entity, say like Staff Senate, Faculty Senate, or let's say some of the policy committees that Anne, as your VP, appoints students to. But it is a pretty hefty coalition or group in terms of the clout that they have, just because there's a lot of very influential faculty and administrators on it. And it was formed, it's not like, it's been formed within like the past 4 months, something like that, give or take. So it's not like, it hasn't been around for like years or anything like that. And I can answer other questions too, if anyone has them.
It came as a result of Dr. Morgan's, I assume.
A little bit before that, yeah, a little bit before that, around probably towards the tail end of spring quarter, when the Black Lives Matter, just a lot of protests and activism around that. So May, June, give or take.
I actually also have a question. I know that the resolution was forwarded to ISAC, and I really appreciate that you guys included our input on that, but I was wondering if this was also forwarded to the directors of the MCC, Angel and Leah.
Yes, I sent that to them today. Leah, I sent them the final draft, but Leah said it looked good. The only thing for her was that can you go back to the resolution, Justin? Yep. Just that the demands like might be too broad, and so we couldn't like fully hone in. But also, personally, I feel like there's a lot of demands going around, but at this point, it's not necessarily about like pushing more demands, but rather kind of holding people accountable in positions of leadership. And so, yeah, I mean, you all can offer your input on any of them. But that was Leah's take on, I don't know about all the demands. She just said some of the demands.
Yeah. In the next week, I invite senators to talk to your constituents, especially those within the MCC and those most affected by campus safety's presence in the university, to see if maybe if you guys want more rigorous demands or anything like that. That's definitely something. I'm not really sure if that's something that like we can forward it to the committee or the task force and just like let them know. But yeah, Melanie?
I have a quick question. I was wondering if they're also aware of the demands from the Unity movement. So I think this would be like what you said, Tiara, there are a lot of demands going around, and I was wondering if it's possible to also combine them, consolidate them, or just ensure that we're sending the same message across.
Melanie, can you clarify the Unity movement demands?
There are a lot. But if I remember correctly, I believe there might have been a section surrounding campus safety.
Okay, because what I know is that there's basically all of the demands, like over the last maybe 4 months, have been consolidated onto one document through upper admin that included ASG's demands, the College of Arts and Sciences tenured Black faculty, alumni, the list goes on and on. And so they have all of that codified, but this is like personally the only demands that I know following the ISAC incident. So it's more recent and like relevant, time sensitive. So we can offer that feedback. I think the only thing is just like maybe like acknowledging those demands and that there's already demands present, but like these are the demands that staff, students, and faculty have agreed to following Wednesday.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. Acknowledging the past demands and then noting that this is even more pressing.
Sounds good.
Yeah. In addition to any questions or comments, I do welcome like any discussion in terms of like tangible impacts or kind of if there's anything that you guys want to see as senators beyond just the resolution. I think that's partly like once Professor David Ball gets here, what we can kind of transition into that discussion, which is like beyond this no confidence resolution. What else can we do on this topic? But yeah. But so Professor David Ball, I think he's overseeing some other meeting at the moment. So I think
I'm here.
Perfect. Oh my goodness. We can, so let's table this till next week then. And so again, like if after like looking it through, you have anything you want us to send to the coalition, just let me know. But yeah, let me go back to the slides. But yeah, thank you, Professor, for joining us today. From what I know that he's going to be coming to speak with us on kind of like, actually, David, I'll let you take it away.
Sure. So thanks everyone for having me. I saw the email that went out to the university, and I was pretty appalled about the Blue Lives Matter flag in the background. And so I wanted to talk to you all. I teach criminal law. I'm a professor in the law school, and I teach criminal law and criminal procedure, and I've done lots of work on sort of policy reform related to all of that. Oh, now I can see all of you. So thanks for having me. And I guess I wanted to say a couple of things. First, I wanted to offer you all any of the help that I can give, and other law students in helping coordinate that with an alternative to campus safety. But fundamentally, here's my take on it. One is that we have the Santa Clara Police Department literally across the street from us on El Camino Real in that very shiny building. We do not need to replicate that on campus. It blows my mind. Second, that public safety is not just a synonym for crime. I think it means that everyone feels safe when they are on campus, and too often that has not included all people, particularly people of color, particularly African-American people. And so I think we need to ensure that if we are actually talking about making campus safe, it's a place where people feel like they're not going to be scrutinized for no reason, et cetera, right? That's part of what it means to be safe. If you come to my house and I'm constantly peering over my shoulder at you and I'm monitoring you, like, you're not going to relax. But I also think that if we're talking about, what our values are as a Jesuit institution, and I'm not Christian, so, this is not like some, I'm not trying to brainwash you here. It's really much more of like, what is the pastoral, what would a pastoral patrol look like? What would Jesus do? And this is the thing that I sent out to the faculty listserv, assuming that the story is true. And I find it very difficult to believe that Dr. Morgan's brother, who had books and a laptop on a college campus, like, that's not suspicious. Like, that doesn't also read to me like somebody who is homeless, because as far as I am aware, and I have actually done some work with homeless folks, they don't have a lot of Zoom meetings. But even assuming that that were true, I think that, if you ask what would Jesus do, Jesus would not have like 4 cars roll up on somebody, right? Jesus would say, hey, if you are homeless, let me help you out. And so when I think about what it is that students need, and you all are in a much better position to determine this, but again, based on sort of national statistics, nothing based on Santa Clara in particular, that students as a whole, like the biggest risk to student public safety are unwanted sexual experiences, problems with substances, right? So substance use disorder, which of course often leads to unwanted sexual experiences, and also sort of mental health problems, which often lead to substance use problems as well, or can result from unwanted sexual experiences. And so I don't know why, if we're talking about campus safety or campus security, why are we thinking only in terms of armed people who are going to be on campus, and who, like, why are we preparing for things that are not actually in the lives of most Santa Clara students nearly as germane as things like being helpers, right? So sort of being, why would we not have something that is based more on the tenets of, the Society of Jesus, where you were going out to actually help somebody? And so, so how would you really respond if you genuinely thought someone were homeless? How would you genuinely respond if you thought someone was lost? How would you respond to somebody in some kind of crisis? How would you respond to somebody who, was having some kind of, substance use issue? And I think if we start to orient that, and we say, and we're also an institution of higher education, what are the ways in which we can think creatively about what our needs are and what we want that to look like? I don't think it looks like the police. I think the police are just down the street if we need police. But, and just to be totally frank with you, like, I am a defund and divest kind of person. So I do think that the root causes of criminal behavior are not because people are bad. I think that they relate to other kinds of things going on. But I don't even think that, I don't understand that there's a real crime spree going on campus. I think bikes get stolen at universities, but that's really, sort of where I come down to it. Berkeley has just decided that, police officers are not going to be responsible for parking and traffic enforcement. So I think we could say campus, parking enforcement could be one thing, but what kind of role do we really need for police substitutes? And if we are going to have police substitutes, I don't understand why we don't have the real thing when people go through police academy and training and things like that. Like, so that's sort of, those are the ways in which I would encourage you all to sort of think deeply about, why are we just defaulting to this particular model of campus security? Why are we defaulting to this particular model of policing? Why is our default model not much more on, the Jesuit values of this institution? So I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have, but mostly what I wanted to do is offer my services to you all. If you all have ideas about, hey, what other jurisdictions have done this? What other schools have done this? How we get our hands on, sort of crime data? How could you get help, somebody carrying water for you in the, with the administration? I hope that that's still, yeah. So someone doing your work for you with the administration. One never knows, because English is so full of like terrible, horrible etymologies. So I don't know if I've just messed up by saying that, but anyway, so I'm willing to do all of that. There are lots of folks in the law school who would also be willing to do that. I've worked pretty closely with the Black Law Students Association, because I've had a lot of my, a lot of the members of the executive board in my classes. And so I've talked to them about that as well. And I know they're interested. So all of which, so that's it. That's all really I have to say is I'm at your service, and I'm happy to talk to you about any of these issues from a 35,000 foot level down to a ground level, as you all are thinking about, you know, what you would want, and really as you would be putting your input into why are we even talking about campus security? Like, why is this not sort of up for grabs? So that's it. If you have questions, I know you all have a lot of stuff to do, but I'm here as long as you all want or need to talk to me. I'm also happy to go away if you guys like, you know, done, you know, so I'll just open it up to you all.
Yeah, so at this point, I'd like to open up the floor for questions, comments, anything at all. I do know that we have a couple of people who aren't on ASG, specifically on Hill and Margaret Russell. Like, please feel free to comment anything. But
Professor Russell, is that Professor Russell? Is she here?
I
am
so.
the lotus flower.
Ah,
Hi, David.
Well, yeah.
David's been a colleague of mine for a long time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So sorry about that. Well, you know, and Professor Russell can tell you, well, my wife is always fond of saying, like, I talk to everybody the same way. So Margaret has heard me do this exact same thing, you know, in various other forums. So you get what you get with me. So anyway, all right.
Anyway, just coming to say hello.
So any questions for me or, you know, thoughts or, you know, anything at all, really?
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Should I raise my hand? I'll do that. Okay, go.
Abby?
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if you said my name. I was just wondering if you've had meetings with, you know, Santa Clara administrators about these alternative models in the past or since the most recent incidents, and if you have, kind of how they've responded.
So I have not. Like, so since Dean Kloppenberg left and became the provost, you know, I have emailed her and I've said, this is a subject of my academic research and expertise, and I really want to be involved in it. And I've sort of laid out these principles. I actually had conversations in, you know, I'm teaching a class that basically is about the regulation of the police. And I talked to students about, you know, what they would think about campus safety, you know, and how we could ensure that, you know, and so looking at, like, what are the harms from large scale stop and frisk programs, right? Which is, you know, like, not, I mean, in New York, it's 500,000 people a year, but, you know, that there are some pretty common themes that underlie all of this. And so I know there's a process, and we're not there yet, but I have made it known to at least some of the members of the administration that I am happy, more than willing and able to do this. And I, you know, I think that sort of, I think there's a way in which sometimes people assume that there is a common conception of what needs to happen without actually stopping and asking people what needs to happen. And I don't even think that people sometimes ask these questions about, like, why do we need campus security? And so I would say that the reaction I've gotten is there's a long process and there is politics. And, you know, when you're a tenured professor, you're allowed to sort of shoot your mouth off and say whatever you want. And I understand this is like a big organization and it has to do things. So I have offered, but it's not clear to me. I think Professor Russell or Dean Russell or whatever her, Margaret to me, she could probably tell you a little bit more because there is a process and there is a procedure going on, and she would have a much better idea of what that is at the university level.
Oh, good. I am so sorry that I have not put on my camera, but I had a really long day in dealing with the election, so I actually have my feet up, relaxing. But so let me just explain the idea of the audit, which is being conducted by Judge LaDoris Cordell, retired Judge LaDoris Cordell, who was the auditor of the San Jose Police Department, and has a lot of experience with gathering information, interviewing people, and then making recommendations. So I spoke with her the other night. The contract that we arranged with her and was based on her timeline and the other commitments that she had. And she said that she would be able to finish the report with recommendations by the end of the year. So that's the end of the year. but it may be a little bit sooner than that, I hope. But it really is according to her, her schedule and what she had anticipated her other responsibilities would be. But the idea of the audit is really going back to the history of how Campus Safety Services got set up the way it was, how it's been operating, what are past complaints, who are past employees. It's pretty thorough, the list of things, which it was spelled out in a letter at the very beginning to the campus community, but I can resend it. It's sort of a bullet point list of what kind of information she's gathering and what she's looking at. But whatever her recommendations are, I know because we've been talking about it, that the administration is going to assemble a committee, a working group for next steps of actually how to reimagine, to look at things, to take the recommendations. And Professor Ball, your name is one of the names that's being, you may be asked along with Professor Oberman because both David Ball and Professor Michelle Oberman really, they're very compassionate. They have a lot of expertise in the area of criminal law, and David especially in policing. And we want to go, obviously, in a progressive direction with this. Well, maybe it's not obvious, but we want to go in a progressive direction about this because we need to.
One thing that I would just maybe add to that as a framing issue that I think would be interesting for us is that we really actually do have an opportunity to turn the sort of really disturbing and disheartening and tragic events, on campus after a very, very difficult and depressing summer, where we can actually say, all right, well, let's rethink this, right? And let's actually be a sort of model for how we proceed, particularly as a university that has made real commitments to, particular values. And that's the thing that I would like to, I want us to move toward the light. I want us to say like, hey, look, wouldn't it be great if, we were working with people rather than assuming that, we needed to discipline people. And so, that's really what, wouldn't it be great if we assumed that people we didn't know were not threats? Wouldn't we assume, wouldn't it be great if we assumed that people of any ethnicity were just as welcome as everybody else, right? I mean, so those are the ways in which I think we can frame it positively. It's clearly been like a really hard 4 years, and last 6 months and last 72 hours or whatever. I mean, like all of it's been hard, but I think that and it has been for me, and I know it's been for all of you. But that's the thing that I would, like there is hope. There is, we can actually make real progress here and be a sort of light for other people who are dealing with similar issues. And there are lots of places that are dealing with very similar issues.
Zakia?
Thank you. So in our committee, we've talked about how campus safety has been going to the calls with EMS. And I think that that's something that's kind of detrimental to how the calls to EMS can go, especially considering people feel threatened when campus safety arrives, when, they have something going on and they might be scared. So considering that there was an event a few years ago with the stabbing and that campus safety feels they need to protect EMS, whatever, how do you think that we can approach this? Because after speaking with our health and wellness senator at large, Emma Fontana, she's really kind of educated us a little bit on just how difficult it is to be in EMS and have campus safety arriving first, and they can't do anything until campus safety gets there.
So I mean, it's always terrible when there is an event like somebody being stabbed. And one of the things, I actually just wrote an article about it called The Peter Parker Problem. Yep, it's about Spider-Man, but it's all about, the ways in which like these incredibly salient events tend to stick out in our minds, where we're like, yeah, that's normal, when really that's the 1 in 5,000, but we just remember that. And our brains, you know, we're not evolved to do statistical analysis, right? We're like, never happens, sometimes happens, always happens. That's pretty much, those are the 3 layers of statistical analysis we can do, right? And so it's very difficult to swim upstream from that. But if you look at things like, you know, what are the number of police officers who were killed on duty, right? So I know you were talking about EMS, and I'll get to that in a second, but number of police officers who were killed on duty is vanishingly small. And the most recent statistic, the best study that I've seen in Florida, of all places, said only 1 in every 6.5 million traffic stops results in a police fatality. And yet police are trained as though that's going to happen every single time, right? So one of these things is, how do we contextualize this thing that happened 3 years ago that we're still talking about? Why don't we talk about the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times where nothing happened and nothing would have happened and nothing did happen before the police were there? As far as your sort of general, you know, question, I think that one of the issues that we have is, what do we lose by this, right? And this is something that also comes up when we talk about stopping and frisking. Like, we lose a lot. It happens to fall disproportionately on people of color, particularly African Americans, but you lose something. You lose safety every time this happens. And so if somebody is calling because they have a medical emergency, or they're like, you know, somebody did, you know, somebody did an opioid, and I don't want to call EMS because I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble. That's not public safety, because you actually, like, you want to make sure people live. And so I would say that, you know, anytime there's an issue of some kind of substance use overdose, and, you know, up until recently, you know, alcohol was the number 1 killer for people aged 18 to 60. So alcohol is and has always been like a very, very dangerous drug, although you don't worry about law enforcement. So I think, you know, the harm reduction issue is, you are literally keeping people safe if you know, give them access to naloxone and Suboxone, and, you know, to ways of treating, you know, opioid overdoses. And I don't know what the stats are at Santa Clara, but I would say by and large that you don't need, you know, armed law enforcement every time you call EMS. And it does, you know, there are ways in which having police officers around runs the risk of increasing the odds that someone is going to get hurt. You know, so so police officers do not always de-escalate the situation. And, you know, I'm from Georgia, which I guess I can say now because, you know, it looks like good things are happening there. But my mom, you know, who's like an old white lady, you know, she's 80 years old. She was like, why did the police have to shoot Rashard Brooks for running away? Right. And, you know, he was, for those of you who don't know, he was, you know, asleep in a Wendy's parking lot because he slept in his car because he was homeless. And what he did was he didn't obey the officers, and he was then treated as a public safety risk. But he died, and he was killed by the police officers. That's not a public safety win. And so, Zakiya, I think maybe one of the ways in which I would frame the response to that question is, public safety for whom and under what circumstances? Right? And if it's actually diminishing the likelihood that somebody is going to call the police when they have a medical emergency because they're concerned about collateral consequences of some kind, whether they're going to get busted, you know, they're going to get thrown out of the dorm, they're going to get expelled or whatever, I would rather save people's lives or make sure that they're not hurting themselves first, because that's my concept of what public safety includes. I'm not looking to maximize arrests. I don't think arresting somebody is a good way of treating their underlying substance use disorder. It often makes it much, much worse. I think oftentimes, you know, there's plenty of evidence that people tend to misuse substances as a way of self-medicating. There's this study called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Test, ACE. You can study that. You know, it's very well known that people who suffer adverse childhood experiences are way more likely to develop problems with alcohol and other drugs. And so that would be my take on it, is to say, a stabbing is bad, but that does not necessarily mean that stabbings are inevitable. It doesn't mean they're the most likely. It doesn't mean that there's anything you could do about it. And it also doesn't mean that if you have police officers, or not police officers, you have campus security officers accompanying EMS students, that is not also causing some public safety harm. It might not be as dramatic as a stabbing, But we don't know about the students who didn't call EMS because they were worried about campus safety officers. We don't know about the delay in medical treatment by EMS not going because they had to wait for campus security. And those are not such far-fetched ideas. They're just not going to register as vividly as a stabbing is, but that doesn't mean that they're not important.
Emma, you get a quick follow-up?
Yeah. So hi. My name is Emma, and I am an EMT on campus. Well, we're not functioning on campus right now, and so thank you so much, Zakia, for asking that. It's a really pertinent question. I just have like a follow-up question. It's like kind of small. So a lot of the time, so when we get trained, our main thing is, don't become a patient yourself, because in a situation where you become a patient, you're no longer able to help the situation. And so I think a lot of the times the university uses that as kind of an idea for why campus safety has to show up every single time before us, so that, it is that they can clear the scene. And I'm wondering, is there something that we could bring up to because we're getting a lot of questions right now, and our leadership team is definitely trying to bounce around a lot of things. Is there something that you would suggest? Maybe we can meet at a different time, but that would kind of, because as of right now, campus safety is the only thing, and we reference things like the Graham stabbing because they are incidents where EMS was put in danger, and I think that the university is concerned with our safety, but I do also agree that a lot of students don't call us because they are afraid from the campus safety side, which is, I think, equally as bad.
Right. And so, listen, I want to be very clear here, right? I'm not saying that the Graham stabbing doesn't count. It definitely does count, right? And one of the things, and again, I'm following in the footsteps of scholars who have studied this kind of stuff. I don't know enough about the circumstances of that, but I can guess it was probably like a Friday or Saturday night party and someone was super wasted. I think that there might be, or maybe not, I could be totally wrong about that. But if you study the incidences and you're like, are there situations that are more or less likely, to result in somebody acting violently? Then you could say, yeah, under these circumstances, that's when we do need to have campus security with us. So even in the study that said 1 in every 6.5 million, traffic stops, it turns out that if somebody is being, tracked when there's a known felony warrant for them and they have absconded from law enforcement before, that the odds of somebody using deadly force against them goes way, way up. Right. But in the, plain vanilla case where it's just like somebody's taillight is out, the odds are actually much lower even than 1 in 6.5 million that anything bad will happen. And so if you take the data and you can say, all right, well, here are the circumstances under which it actually is more likely that something bad will happen. And these are the ones where we don't worry about it, right? So if somebody is, let's say somebody is like choking on something or, passes out in lunch in Benson. Remember that? Like when we used to be in person with each other? My God. Anyway, so if they do that at noon, like I think the odds of somebody being stabbed under those circumstances are probably pretty minimal, right? And we would say, let's not do that. I think it would be much more like late night, somebody is really, out of control like that. And again, that's not based on Santa Clara. It's really that 2/3 of the people who get arrested for crimes of violence are under the influence of alcohol. So I think it's fine. You can use all the alcohol you want. I'm not a drinker, but you should know that like it does tend to lead to violence and unwanted sexual contact much more than other drugs do. So Emma, so that I think that would be the question for me, is to say, well, under what circumstances could we say, yeah, this is likely enough where we default to, we will have someone accompanying us because for our safety, right? Under these circumstances, we probably don't have to worry about it. And then, if we get there and we're worried about it, then, we call somebody and we figure it out that way. But I think that what you need to do is you need to figure out, are there contours to these situations that make it more or less likely that somebody is going to react violently? And typically there might be at least some clues that like, oh, this is a much worse one than that one, is likely to be, right? And like I said, alcohol is one of them, but it's not the only one, right? So, if this has been you've come there 2 or 3 times, or there are repeat players with roommates who are constantly like throwing stuff at each other, then yeah, maybe you make sure campus security comes with you the next time, right? But those are, I think that's the way I would approach it as a sort of social scientist. Is I would say, what do the data tell us? Is there anything that's remotely predictable about it? And then how do we adjust on that basis?
Hi, thank you so much for meeting with us, Dr. Ball. But right now, there's a lot of work already being done on campus, especially I just want to call attention specifically to Abby Alvarez, who's doing a lot of great work with her Safe Walk program, which works to like minimize campus safety's presence on campus while also trying to do things like prevent sexual assault. I was wondering if you have any recommendations specifically for other avenues where we could reduce campus safety's presence. I know ResLife has already done like a little change in their policy to sort of like minimize campus safety's presence there, but for things like sexual assault, but also like mental health crises, what kind of recommendations do you have?
Yeah, so I mean, and listen, I'm so glad that you're educating me about this. Like, law school tends to be its own little thing, and so I know that you all are doing lots of work. And again, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to say I'm here to help you because I would like to see things get better on campus. And so I think you're right. That we do need to think about like how do we prevent the harm in the first place? That's really what people who want to defund and divest want to talk about. And so I think, one of the things about mental health is destigmatization, right? I think that we should all, like that's really important, and you all as student leaders can do a lot about that. I think that we can, again, sort of problematic, drug and alcohol usage, less about busting someone and more about asking what is driving that, right? Might get at some of those issues. And I also know that there are other kinds of programs like nonviolent communication or sort of empathic listening or things like that that are ways of resolving disputes that I don't know if you could do that through ResLife or whatever, right? But I think for me, what I would want to do if I were talking to somebody about campus security is I would want to say, what are the crimes that are reported, or what are the threats to public safety that are reported by students, right? Where do those tend to be? What does campus security do about those? How does it make them, better? Because, we don't want to just assume that the crimes are the ones we see on television, but our brains tend to do that, and not yours and not mine. All of our brains tend to do that. So those are really the things where I think doing, survey work, but also just understanding that in a harm reduction principle, you should be allowed to talk to people about what your problems are without fear of reprisal. That doesn't mean that you can say I murdered somebody and because I'm talking to you about it, I feel better. Like that's not, although that is a priestly tradition, about taking confession. So, I mean, it's not totally but if you could say, yeah, I'm having real problems, I'm blacking out, I'm doing all these other kinds of things, right? And who is there to talk to you about that? Not judgmentally, but as a problem solver to help you go forward, right? Not in terms of punishing you. So I think that those would be just sort of general practices that would be, that would be beneficial.
Could I add something here? This is Margaret Russell again. So the audit with all this information, including what David just mentioned, is going to be out within the next 6 to 8 weeks. I hope sooner rather than later. And what I would suggest is right now, thinking about ways in which you will ask the president and the cabinet to release the findings and the recommendations as soon as possible, and an intention and expectation that students will be part of the change, and that it should begin as promptly as possible. So I think if you get that going now and start thinking about, who has the time, who has the interest and bandwidth to be part of a working group, implementation group that would devise new policies, this is the time to think about it so that you can ask for it and just be ready to go.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I kind of had a follow-up question with that because quite frankly, I'm really cynical that the university will do like anything, like even after the audit results gets released, like I'm quite cynical that they'll actually implement all of the recommendations. Margaret, like to your, and I know that you like, never mind. But I just have a question.
No.
Like,
Feel free to say it.
my question kind of is like from your gauge on what is happening, do you think the administration is ready and willing, and like whatever recommendation that the judge ends up like putting forth, like is there kind of a promise or expectation that all of those recommendations will be carried out, or is it still kind of more of a pick and choose thing between what works for the university?
Well, I do know that the president and others at the top levels who were involved in interviewing Judge Cordell to be a potential auditor are very impressed with her, and they want her to do her work thoroughly and not just be window dressing. And I know Judge Cordell, and she is not a window dressing kind of person. It's not a sure thing that I don't know what the recommendations will be. It's not a sure thing that they will all be developed, but they will. I don't think, and I would not say this explicitly if I didn't mean it, but I am not cynical about President O'Brien. And I've worked closely with him for the last, I don't know, couple months, 6 months on this issue. So please don't be cynical yet, okay? Because I really am not, and I'm a pretty astute person as in my advanced years. I know when people are just pretty shallow, and he really is not. Okay.
Yeah. And I wanted to kind of like provide context on what like Angel was saying earlier about asking for recommendations, because well, personally, like Margaret, honestly, that makes me feel a lot better. I'm sure it makes a lot of senators feel a lot better about everything that's going on, and I think we're all looking forward to the audit results. But even with that, like personally, I am still cynical, and there's just still like a small part of my mind that's kind of worried that like nothing will change, that after the audit results like get put out, like everything will just go back to same old like next year. And I'm kind of curious, David, if you have any like concrete recommendations on kind of what on kind of what senators can do now. Like there's 34 people here, and I'm sure that a lot of senators are passionate about this work. Is there any work that you think we should do within the next 2 months? We've already been reaching out to Res Life. I know Emma Fontana and has been talking to EMTs and stuff. But beyond Res Life and EMTs, are there other aspects of the university that you personally have identified that doesn't necessarily need campus safety's involvement within? And if so, like what are those areas, and like kind of what are their alternatives, so that we can start pushing those now rather than later?
So I have 2 suggestions, and they're really just political ones, but I think they might be important political ones. So one of them would be, look at the contract structure, right? And to say, hey, what, I mean, this is frequently useful from people who do police, abolition work. We pay campus security X, and, for that amount of money, here are the number of violence interrupters, or, sexual violence counselors, or, trainings we could do for students in Res Life about, consent, or the number of people we could hire at Cowan or whatever, right? So those are ways of expressing, we do have resources to better deploy folks, and it would be, it would be preventative, so we wouldn't have to wait for emergencies to call somebody in, right? Because campus security is only responding to a problem that has already occurred, and what we really want to talk about is how we prevent things, right? And so I think actually sort of nailing down, because they're at-will employees, that's the one part that really just frosted me, is that this guy's up there with the Blue Lives Matter thing and is asked to take it down, and says, no, he is like, I don't understand why the university is deferring to him and seeing how they treat adjunct professors. Like, I think adjunct professors are a hell of a lot more important to this university than campus security is. And if an adjunct professor is like, nah, I'm not going to take that down, they would be fired summarily. And they have the same, kinds of employment protections as, as campus security, which is, say, not the same ones I have. as a tenured professor, so and don't worry, these are just books. I have pictures of my kids and my dog behind me. So, and I can take them down if you guys want, but there's nothing offensive. All right. So the second thing is that I think one of the other ways in which you might appeal to the administration and also build up political organizing is that if you talk to your parents about it and you got your parents to say, this is actually, I'm cool with it. I want my kids, to be in this kind of environment. Because if I think about what might appeal or what might freak out the administration, it's that they're guessing that, parents are going to be paranoid and they want their children to go to a school that is monitored by, paramilitary, police forces. And you all know that that's not what you actually want, like that's not the only alternative. And I think if they heard, and this is, so this is hearing from you all as students, and also, so people other stakeholders who might be involved. But I don't, I think the question for me really is like, when we talk about public safety is re-envisioning what safety means, and then also talking about what the public means, and who counts. And so I think when you talk about disparate impact, like the number of times certain people get stopped, they're usually people of color, and that's not the kind of thing that's going on. But all I was saying about parents, and it doesn't have to be parents, it's just think about other stakeholders who might be able to say, this is what I want Santa Clara's reputation to be, and don't make assumptions about the ways of getting it there. Don't make assumptions about what I think is important and about how we get there. So I think if you all got students to say, I would feel comfortable knowing I could call the police who are literally across the street. I don't need extra campus security. I would rather have a different kind of university provision of something to look after my health and well-being. I think that would be really effective. I think, so I don't know if that's at all helpful, but that I think changes the debate enough. The question is really, what are the assumptions that they are making? That there's high crime and that campus security is effective in fighting crime, and that you need a separate campus security when you have the police across the street. And I don't think there's any evidence for that. And I don't think that you all should bear the burden of disproving that. I think you should say, hey, administration, what evidence, when you decided to have campus security, given that the police are right across the street, why did you do that? How much does it cost? What was the basis of that? And how well is that working? And if they can't say like, well, I don't know, we just had to, okay, that's a terrible reason. How do you know it's working? They're like, they won't have any answers to that, right? And so then the question, if you then couple that with this, thing about here's what we could do with this money that would actually be, promoting health among the students and promoting safety and promoting good relationships and things like that, then you can say, yeah, we have pretty good evidence that would actually work for people. That's just all a question of framing, right? And making sure to ask the right questions.
So Professor Ball, I have what we would call a challenging question in the law school.
Yes.
So, okay, so I'm totally empathetic with the idea of structuring campus security in a way that's really there to help in very positive ways. What I don't understand is when people say, rely on the police, they're right across the street, because I am more suspicious, just structurally, about the police department across the street. And I have asked lawyers in the area who've handled police misconduct cases in Santa Clara County, and they've told me about some of them. And the police, we met with the police chief, and the police chief has vowed for reform. But why? I mean, wouldn't it make sense also to investigate and hold accountable the police department across the street? I don't know if I would want to.
100%.
Okay.
This is the camel's nose under the tent, right? Right now we have 2 police forces, right? We can't not have the Santa Clara police involved. Like, they're going to come anyway. And so no free pass for them. My question is, like, who are the first responders on a Jesuit campus? Are they police who are less trained, right?
Well, they're not police and they don't have guns, which to me is more trustworthy than the police department. I mean, some of them are former cops for sure, but they don't have weapons.
Okay.
Which makes me feel better than anyway, I just asked that because I wouldn't want to let the Santa Clara Police off the hook.
Accepted, 100% co-signed, no problemo. Like that is, yep, that is really for the what if somebody climbs up and starts taking people out with an automatic rifle, right? I like, you know, which is totally unlikely, you know, but yeah.
Yeah.
There is a fail-safe for that, but I don't imagine this being like all of a sudden, you know, there's going to be a beat running through the, you know, the campus, right? It's the question of how do we monitor things, and if anyone is really concerned about, well, what if the worst case scenario happens? There is a fail-safe for that, but I don't want the police from Santa Clara County, you know, from Santa Clara City to be the first responders there any more than I want campus security to be the first responders.
Okay, thanks.
Anil?
Yeah. So just, I guess I just had a question. I know when Justin was speaking on, you know, just being cynical towards like, you know, for the administration's like, I guess, action plan after that audit is released. I guess I could like, I could kind of, I also kind of feel that as well. Being cynical of like administration's like, you know, ability to like take on that. I think for the majority of the part is because, you know, I was looking at the Blue Ribbon Commission that Father Eng had established in 2016. And the Blue Ribbon Commission on Diversity and Inclusion submitted their final report December 2016. And one of the recommendations was to, you know, finalize and create the role of VP of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, right? And it wasn't until about 2020, 4 years, about 3.5 maybe years later, that, you know, once under Father Eng's administration, that they take this back on again, when this was recommended in 2016. So I guess, you know, one of the things that I kind of have in mind is like, how can students make sure that, you know, these things get done? I know that one thing that we continuously hear is, well, things take time. Things, you know, process, you know, policy takes time, and well, how long will it take? I guess is my question. But I guess when it's an issue of urgency, especially with, you know, students' well-being and with campus safety relations, like seeing moving forward, I just want to ensure that these things will get done. I mean, by the time that some of us in this room are, you know, graduate. So yeah. And I don't know if there's a question in that, but I guess I was just trying to say that.
I hear you. I don't have a good read on that. I'm just a law professor, you know. Margaret, you.
Well, I am trying to remember the students who are on the current committee searching for the VP. Is anybody here on that committee? But the sad backstory is that when the Blue Ribbon Commission recommended a position, we essentially had 2 failed searches, which means that there were search committees in the first. I was on the first search committee, and an offer was made and declined. Unfortunately, that person is still at his home institution of UV Irvine. And then the second search, I was not on that committee, but my understanding is that it did not result in an offer. So the key thing, there's a good search committee right now. They are planning to choose people to interview, probably in January, but they're going to make the decisions of finalists in December. And, you know, I would just encourage your student representative on that committee to give you whatever information they can about the timeline to make sure that there is a successful search completed by ideally January or February. And then I can go back to the law faculty.
Yay.
Yay.
Ola?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to, I thought the conversation between yourself, Professor Baugh, and Professor Russell earlier, I just had a thought that I think oftentimes students do a cost-benefit analysis of defaulting to campus safety or SCPD in situations of danger when they might need help. What are your, and oftentimes that cost-benefit analysis looks different for students, and I'm specifically referring to like students of color and Black students. I guess my question is like, what if we default to a campus safety that is, like Dr. Ball was saying, more aligned with the Jesuit values that the school is built upon? How might the perception of what types of safety resources that campus safety could provide versus SCPD? Because I do think that the crime, and I'm not sure, like, I don't know, I'm just from my experiences on campus, this is where I'm drawing from, that the crimes on campus include things like stolen bikes. I guess I don't really have a question, but that's just something I thought of in your conversation.
So here's one thing I want to sort of point out, you know, and I'm sorry, it's late, and I've also been like totally freaked out about all the political stuff going on, and I just left another Zoom meeting. So I have definitely rounded some edges here, and I've not been responding with the nuance that, you know, that is actually. So look, I'll say one thing, right? Like, so I do tend to be somebody who's more on the restorative justice side of things, but that has been criticized by, you know, a colleague of ours at UNLV Law School named Eve Hannon, who's like, look, restorative justice just means that, you know, male sexual assaulters get off. That's her opinion on it.
Oh my goodness.
You know, and
Okay.
so, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying that there are a variety of ways in which like this can play out very, very differently, right? And I could see that even in your question, and I might not have understood it entirely, but I could see where you could say, well, look, it might just shift the discrimination and the discretion somewhere else, right? Where, you know, the resources are going to be more, you know, toward white students than they are toward students of color. And so this is just going to replicate it. You know, maybe that will at least be, you know, it's still going to be unfair, you know, and so, and how do we sort of manage that? Or also these ideas of, you know, trying to prevent things and keeping them out of the criminal legal system, or keeping, you know, criminal justice out of it entirely. It might be appropriate to sometimes have the criminal legal system involved, or there might be pressure for somebody to be like, well, I don't want to report that sexual assault because like our whole thing is that, you know, we're not supposed to do that, right? I mean, and so clearly those are not done deals, and they're not certainly anything that I would advocate for, you know, nor do I think that any of you would advocate for that. But there are going to be some of these issues in terms of implementation, you know, and auditing and all that sort of stuff. So maybe the place I would leave you with, Paula, if this is, you know, appropriate to answer the question maybe that you didn't ask or whatever, is to say, I always think that it's important, and it's difficult with students, right? Because you all do graduate and leave, but it is important to have some kind of mechanism by which like we're making sure that the changes that we made are actually improving things, right? And so I think it would be useful for us to ask, or for you all to think about, like, what would be some metrics that we could use to say, all right, well, this is how we know things are getting better. And I will tell you that it's very difficult in criminal law, you know, so to figure that out anyway, because crime is unreported. You know, we don't know what the real thing is, except for things like with biological markers like DUI, right? You can tell if somebody was like 0.08 or below or something like that, but it's much more difficult to say, was this an assault? You know, were they, you know, were these two buddies just wrestling, or was one of them really punching the crap out of the other and the other one flying about it or whatever, right? Because these things don't appear in the wild as, you know, like, this is second-degree assault, or, you know, like, this is a criminal threat, you know, the way they might if you can measure something like blood alcohol content. So having said all of that, I do think that it's important to say, here's what we want, and here's what we're trying to do. If the programs that we're talking about, or these changes that we're talking about, would be successful, this is the kind of evidence we would see. We're going to make a commitment to gathering that data, and we're going to look at it, and we're going to see if this is actually working. And if it's not, we're going to have some kind of mechanism to reevaluate this, because I could be totally wrong, right, about how this works out from some unforeseen kind of way. And it could be that we were better off with campus security than we would be with some kind of pastoral patrol, or, you know, that replacing campus security with a pastoral patrol created some other kinds of problems that I didn't anticipate, or that there was a training issue, or that there was a reporting issue, or whatever. Just like it's easy for me to point out to say, oh, well, I can see why people wouldn't call, for an EMT if campus security is there for these reasons, right? But the reason that campus security went there, it wasn't that they were trying to screw things up. It's that they were trying to fix one problem and didn't realize that we pushed down on one part of the balloon, another part of the balloon expands. So that is what I would say is just generally good practice, is to say we would have some idea of like what the world would look like if we achieved our goals. Let's measure that. And if we're not doing it, let's keep up the pressure to make sure that we continue to go back to it. Because this is, figuring out policing is not a set it and forget it thing, unfortunately. It's really something where you have to continually be on it. It's like, eating well and exercising. You have to do that crap every day, much to my chagrin. But you just can't ever actually get healthy without paying attention to it all of the time. And so that, I think, is maybe another thing that you all could think about in terms of, which is not to say delay, and it's not to say that there isn't important work to be done immediately. That is 100% 80 degrees off from what I want to say. It's just that the work is ongoing, and we need to think about that in terms of how do we set up a structure where there's continual feedback and we're continually trying to get better.
That's great insight. Thank you.
Margaret, do you want to add anything to that?
I was just thinking about, well, two quick things. I don't know if you have a hard stop, but when you were talking, Paolo, about the experiences of students of color, I was thinking about a meeting that the president, probably the dean of students, a couple other people had with Igwe leaders in June or July with the police chief of Santa Clara. And so we had a chance to meet him and hear from him. And he said I remember he said to us, and you're always welcome to go along with us on patrols. Just let us know and you can go with us on a patrol. And so I am a person of color, and I've been that all my life. And my first reaction was, why would I get into a police car voluntarily? And I actually said that in the meeting. I said something like, that really is not a very attractive offer to me. And I realized that, so I think the important thing is when you have students involved in this process of, carrying out the recommendations, it's really important to have the perspectives of people who are kind of victims of, so for example, you would want to have the perspectives of students of color who grew up not seeing the police as the saviors. I know there are students who do. I talked to one today, and he was very upset at, this whole audit idea. But it's important to realize that people have very different lived experiences. And then the second thing I wanted to say is there is this scholar, professor of psychology named Jennifer Eberhardt, who is sort of well known now because
MacArthur Genius.
Yes, the MacArthur Genius Award person. And she's done a lot of work.
I taught her for a decade. I was into her stuff, like her indie stuff. No.
Oh, you taught her work? Okay, so
yes,
we have arranged to bring her.
Chilling.
What's that?
Her work is really it's amazingly profound and also chilling and disturbing.
Oh, good. Okay, so
yeah.
So this is good for you too, because we have arranged for her to come for a talk on Zoom in February, and she has trained the Oakland Police Department. She has rich experience, and if there's a person I can email maybe the link to her TED Talk, you'll get a sense of how she talks about embedded unconscious biases and how they wind up playing themselves out in all of our decisions, but especially law enforcement. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad you taught her, David.
I didn't teach her. Yes, I taught her work. Yeah, in my work class.
Yeah.
I just have to say we are way over time, but that is completely okay. Don't you worry. We had a lot of very useful and fruitful conversation. I think a lot of senators, especially me included, will take a lot away from this conversation. Professor, I know that you offered to meet with some senators to kind of just pick your brain to do whatever, and I do think that this conversation does need to be continued. So if anyone's interested, and we can probably set up a time within the next week. If you're interested in in talking more with Professor Ball, just to kind of like plan out like what ASG should do as a response to this. Please raise your hand and I'll take that down, and then we'll find a time to meet sometime this next week. But yeah, and Ciara, you're gonna be there too?
For the meeting? Whatever. We can make something work, and Anne and I can be in touch with Professor Ball.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting me come. And again, this is about facilitating your work. So, you know, I'm just want to be a resource to you. I care about the world, and and I figure it starts at Santa Clara. So
Thank you, David. Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor Ball. Thank you too, Margaret. All right, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. I'm sorry that took so long, but I didn't want to cut that off. Okay, so let's go to exec updates. Josh?
Hey guys, so first and foremost, our first event coming up is Love Your Neighbors with Will Gagan. Essentially, I know we talked about this earlier, but this event will focus on, normalizing or improving neighborhood relations, especially between college students and the older neighbors who aren't necessarily college students. What we want to do is, get college students who live off campus to kind of sign up, let us know what neighbors are around them or kind of their area. And we'll try to get free goodie bags and get contact info of the college students for these neighbors. So, if there's ever an issue that arises, hopefully it doesn't escalate to, calling cops or something of that sort. And rather they can just call it out, deal with it with themselves and improve communication. So if you guys do live off campus, I would love for you guys to sign up using this Google form with the QR code. I'll make sure to post it later in the Slack. But essentially our plan is working with neighborhood ambassadors, making sure everything is COVID safe, and seeing if we can help, better improve this relations as we go down the road. Additionally, another thought we had was having some kind of pseudo welcome to finals week. For freshmen, this was kind of a way we helped to de-stress before finals kind of started. Some light, some caffeinated drinks, face masks, food, just stuff to help relax. So, seeing how mask distribution goes well, we'll see if there's something we can do with the Welcomes to Final Week style event where we can get people caffeine, face mask, food, to help them during the finals week if they're still here. Lastly, thank you so much to everyone who's helped with the voter registration drive. You guys have done amazing work. And, there's so many of you guys who've helped across, but, Carmen, Diego, Robbie, just to name a few, Izzy, thank you so much. And, it was a little more difficult with digital. Typically it's been easier if we were held to tabling and such, but I really appreciate the effort and the help.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm here for Elena. So the updates from PR is that the sweatshirts I think are coming tomorrow possibly, and then Yash is distributing them. I am the person for Bronco News, so keep sending me the videos for Student Spotlight, and we'll be posting those once a week. You can email them to me, cbanker@SCU, or send them over to me in Slack, whatever is easiest. My number's on there too. And then I'm not sure what the form is for the email. I think that was from last week. And then also keep sending videos for the freshman video. The deadline is tomorrow because we're hoping to edit the video over the weekend and have it ready to go by Monday. So please keep sending them. They literally can be 30 seconds just to send out to freshmen to give them advice and let them know they're still part of the community. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Hey, I'm Cassidy, and I'm filling in for Robbie right now. We don't have much except we had a pretty successful get out the vote effort on the Instagram, so thanks for working on that, and good energy to you all during this election with everything going on. And if you guys have any bylaw changes, please just send them our way. We're here to help, and we always love to work with you all. So yeah, thanks guys.
Kevin, do you want to go first for exec updates? Do you have any?
Just make sure to start emailing your buddy, and if you guys have any like funding requests, peep that little guide I made. It's tagged on the Slack.
Well said, as always, Kevin. All right, please fill out the survey for diversity training. I sent it out again in the ASG official, so would appreciate it. They did us a big favor, and was very great to. They were very great to come to our training to do a training for us. So let's just fill that out and be great in return to them. And also add something to the accountability doc, please. If you haven't yet, I can also resend that one out tonight. But with something meaningful. So if you need some more time to think about it, take that time and then focus on something tangible you can do to shift your efforts towards building a more inclusive campus. We had some meetings this week, and we met with, Ciara and I met with Provost Kloppenberg yesterday morning, so that was good to chat about. There's some core stuff going down, so they're trying to figure out how to restructure curriculum. So there might be some more things coming out that all of us can work on for that, as well as we met with the MCC leaders. Angel and Leah earlier this week had a really good conversation about ASG MCC collaboration. And we are setting the date for airtime with admin because we rescheduled that after, because we had our listening session on Monday, and we rescheduled airtime with admin to be later, waiting to get a solidified date, but we're thinking either Tuesday or Wednesday of next week or week 9. We'll just see whatever works best for upper admin. I reached out to the UPCs today to get feedback to see what their projects or what's come from their meetings, resent them this beautiful little Google form to get feedback. So if I see overlap on anything or they ask for help from ASG on any of that, I will relay the message to all of you, as well as if you have any projects that you're like, oh, this would be really good to work with like academic affairs on, or parking and transportation, just let me know and I will totally just like put you in contact with whoever the student rep is on those committees, because even though it's not a part of ASG, there's still a lot of, they're meeting with committees focus on that. So that could really help with projects. And yeah, always here to chat. You could call me if you want. You could FaceTime me. You can do anything you want. So that's that. Also, that is me as a baby in 2000, foreshadowing for 20 years later. However, I hope if you're feeling like this and you're like, oh, you know what, I need to chat, then I just laid the groundwork for you there. So yeah, I hope everyone is doing okay. Things are crazy. So that's it for me this week.
Hi all, I have lots of updates. If you use Slack regularly, you may have caught this, well, it's election day again meme. If you know, you know. Also, the picture at the top was just when I ran for ASB president my senior year of high school, and I lost to a guy on a unicycle. But this was my poster that I made, and I was really proud of it because it was good Photoshop skills. Anyways, so for some more serious stuff, I met with John Kerrigan and with Chris Wanese, who drafted the divestment resolution at the beginning of the quarter. And it was honestly like not really like a very discouraging conversation. I'm going to be completely honest. Just kind of a summary of that conversation was that like they don't view the endowment as like a moral document. So despite us thinking that like, oh, like obviously Jesuit values, our university like wants to uphold them, like we should be putting our money like where our mouth is, blah, 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 blah. Like literally verbatim, like the university doesn't think of their endowment as a moral document. And like, that was one weird thing. And then also like, I don't know if you remember any of this, but the Worth Rises report, which was basically like collection of maybe like 4,000 companies, 4,000 yeah, 4,000 companies that kind of we should be divesting from because they are a part of the prison industrial complex. They kind of felt like, well, there's like, I don't know how many, but let's say 7,000 companies in Wall Street. They quoted a number and they were like, so if you're trying to like make us divest on the Worth Rises report, then like that's just a lot. And so it's kind of frustrating because it was like it went from one extreme to another where it's like, so I don't see if we can do this, but we can meet again in the next couple weeks. But there just didn't seem to be a compromise right off the bat, and rather just like it was nice meeting with you. So anyways, that being said, we're going to see what happens in the next week or so. We asked for more clarification about what the issues and obstacles are because we just kind of feel like they just don't have enough pressure, if we're being completely honest. So we'll keep you posted. Also, meeting with MCC leaders, like Anne mentioned, we had a really fruitful conversation. I just wanted to say two things, which was, when in doubt, CC the MCC. So like if you feel that this like a conversation or a project you're working on has something to do with broad MCC, not like, oh, I want to work with CSA on this project. Like if it's something very broad, then you should be CCing the MCC, even, which would basically mean Adenhel and Leah, and they can direct you accordingly. If you are in the MCC, so let's say you're in LSU and you really want to help out, like you need to have your ASG Senate hat on and make sure you're including like another MCC member despite you already being in LSU. And so that's going to be our approach. So we told Leah and Angel, like we came up with a way to like make this all work, and we're trying to prove to them that this is like going to be like a really good symbiotic relationship. So if you have any questions about that, text me and Anne. But we stand by like how important this is to ensure that we're really like working back and forth with everyone accordingly and serving the communities, but also uplifting their voices. Okay.
Ciara, can I add something real quick to that?
Yeah, and Justin, can you update my slide? I just realized it's not updated.
Just also if there's a project you're working on that affects like multiple MCC organizations, that would be a good time to reach out to Leah and Angel to get their perspective and just check in with them. But if it's like something that directly affects like one organization, then like chat with that organization. Does that make sense? If there's like lots of parties and different groups involved and it's bigger scale, then just make sure to reach out. Always, yeah, open communication is the key.
Yeah, and so when in doubt, CC the MCC. If you're really in doubt, text me and Anne before you do that. Okay, also, so the video thing, for example, what Caroline brought up about the first year videos, it come to my attention that it's honestly pulling teeth to get people to make videos, and I know it's just so hard and like so many things to do, and why do I have to do this? I'm already working on my Senate projects, but like this is really just important to show like ASG as a whole. Like that's why I asked for the voting pictures for all of you, like just so that we can like bring more attention to like what we're doing and like how we're continuing to be there for the student body. So I decided to pivot and make it so that like each committee will be responsible, at least one committee will be responsible for sending in videos. If it's like, oh, we only need 5 voices, like then it's just gonna be a rotational thing. So this week is CSC, which is Abby's committee. And so I think Theo and Afani, I know Afani said he'd do it tonight, but you all haven't sent your videos, but like that's how it's gonna be. So get ready for like, oh, Carmen's committee, SAC, you're gonna have to make your videos for this thing. And then if you're out of Senate, there will be other opportunities for y'all to participate as well. Okay, sorry, I know my updates are long. Student trustee project, just want to say that I know that Cassidy Basham is working with, or Cassidy volunteered to help me with that, but I'm gonna wait till tomorrow when I meet with John Auduboni about why we have never like pursued this without any ASG member being like, hey, why is this an issue? So I'll keep you posted on that. anti-racist accountability measures, ASG Buddy is following ISAC. So this one, I'm gonna have to require a little bit participation, but I promise it'll be quick. Basically, so I hope you all are listening. Okay, so ASG Buddies, everyone has an ASG Buddy. Yay, exciting. You get to talk to admin, be hello, hi, get advice. How can we help you? How can you help us? But I feel like given the environment that we're in right now, like that, even though we said like that would be good enough, like I don't think that's good enough. And so exec is meeting to see how we can make this like more fruitful to ensure that there's accountability across admin. And what this really means is that like there needs to be true like a lot of admin and also like all the UPCs, like the fact, 1 second, my parents are like living at home, be like, okay, so what I meant was that like I think it's really important for us to be like holding admin accountable in our roles. And so LOL, how many times have I said fruitful? Okay, so I just think that if you're not pushing like a committee member to do something, like they just don't think that like they're like open to ideas, but they're not going to be proactive in making sure this happens. And I think it's our role as Senate, like, yes, I think a lot of you like are working on amazing projects and should continue that work. But I think like just checking in with your ASG buddy, for example, like I want to depolice Res Life, and my ASG buddy is Heather Dumastar, the director of Res Life. So every other week, I'm going to check in with Heather and be like, hey, how are you doing on this work to work towards becoming an anti-racist university? And making sure you're following up if they're not answering or you're really wanting to see progress. So I think that's really important. And so we're going to follow up with y'all over Slack probably tomorrow. So stay tuned. Okay. And last thing, Senate thoughts. Videos was one of them I brought up. Senate in general, please, if you can keep your cameras on, that would be amazing to show like respect and engagement to the to whatever Senate speaker there is. I know most of you have your cameras on. I know some have Wi-Fi issues, which is totally fine. But like, please be honest, if you don't have Wi-Fi issues and like you're just watching TV or you're talking to a friend or getting ice cream, like this is not the place to do it. Like we come here to take this seriously, and if some senators are taking this seriously and others aren't, it just doesn't look good as ASG in general, and it doesn't look good for the Senate speaker, and it just doesn't look good for each other. So I'm just saying this as a like polite warning to everyone. Please, I know we went way over, but normally we're pretty good on time, so please keep that in mind, or you'll be called out by Cole, or you'll be called out by me personally. So stay tuned, but hopefully that doesn't have to happen. And Annika, if we met with our buddy, should we do another meeting to follow up or save for the next meeting? You can save for the next meeting, but I will follow. We're gonna figure out logistics, because like I'd prefer, I mean, by the end, before the end of the quarter, for there maybe to be another meeting if it's about something that's like needs a meeting to talk about. But you could always just like ask as an initial like, hey, like, also, I forgot to bring this up in my meeting, but like I think this is a really important thing regarding anti-racist work. How can we go about this? So yeah, those are all my thoughts. If you have questions, you can text me. If you have questions about anything, ASG, life, elections, best poli-sci profs, let me know. But take care of yourself, folks, and thank you. Sorry about my long updates.
Yeah, so I think that's it. I'm just going to cut roundtable remarks off just because we are way over time. So if anyone has anything, just put it in the chat. But in the meantime, sorry that went way over, that went 30 minutes over, but I do think that going forward, I appreciate the conversation that we have, and I feel like during Senate, like that's the best time to have these conversations. And I think going forward, if there's any administrator where you want to bring them to Senate to also like pick their brain or just do anything at all, or for Professor's Ball, in case he was a professor, but if there's any administration where you think, or any administrator where you think that'd be useful too, please let me know and we can invite them. And for everyone who had their hands up with meeting with Professor Ball after, I have your name down. I'll send in a calendar invite. We'll figure it out. But yeah. So if there's anything for roundtable remarks, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Theo,
Seconded.
second from Angel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, you are now adjourned. I'll be here until the last person leaves. If y'all want to